even through Green Med Info, you have 77,000, almost 80,000 abstracts that show, the evidence-based approach of natural medicine for health and healing and reduction of, chronic inflammation and metabolic diseases, and, so much proof there. And yet they're still being taught in medical school that this stuff doesn't work. It blows my mind.
Yeah, well, you said some really important things. Like, for example, cancer isn't just something bad that happens to you, but it's something your body does as an intelligent and adaptive response to the environment. So, I wrote a book with Dr. Charles Majors and then Dr. Ben Lerner initially, called Cancer Killers. And it was all summarized in this very good phrase around, you don't get sick because you have cancer. You're already sick, and cancer is an expression of that. So that's one way of describing it. Or basically, what's happening when people experience cancers, which is something we'd want to talk a little more granularly about, because it's a term that's thrown around without proper nuance, is that ultimately your body is activating an ancient survival kit, which is founded on regeneration, actually. Because what happens when a normal cell, right, that's mortal, right, has a certain life cycle? If it's a liver cell, might last, a few months or something, a skin cell or epithelial cell, a few days, and then it's replaced by a new cell because there's a stem cell that's relatively immortal, that's there waiting to regenerate that tissue. So cancer is actually a byproduct in a good number of cases of those regenerative cells being continually assaulted and taxed with the job of having to constantly replace destroyed tissue.
Right.
Let's say you smoked, right, for decades. The miracle isn't that people that smoke, or I'm sorry, the oddity isn't the people that smoke get cancer. It's that they don't get cancer much, much sooner.
Right.
And some live longer than people that look ostensibly healthy, right? That just eat too much. It's because our bodies are working 24/7 to replace the tissue that's being harmed. And so what's happening ultimately is when those stem cells are recruited, some of the same hormones are released that you find in conventional cancers that you do when you repair tissue from injury or other forms of adversity. And so it's hard to really distinguish the two. So I want people to understand that when you look at cancer through a regenerative lens, you start understanding the body is actually very intelligent, and it's recruiting what is fundamentally a immortal cell line in your body. The stem cells come from the germ cell line, which is basically, sperm and egg. And those cell lines have been replicating for at least 3.4 billion years, depending on what timeline you apply. And in fact, the first cell was believed to be deposited here through the panspermia hypothesis through a meteor. Now, does not preclude necessarily a more biblical explanation for the origin of life. But the point, because both what I'm saying is that even the science in biology and astrophysics and all these different converging disciplines show that life is actually immortal. And when people start to understand that, we have a deal in our body as metazoa, complex animal life, that most of our cells are programmed to die and be replaced, because the point is to pass on the immortal seed to the next generation. So cancer is actually when some of that regenerative process gets taxed too much in a lifetime due to what you might call the Anthropocene, which is the epoch of all these novel new chemicals, again, going back to pharma, going back to high tech, applications like coal tar firing and nuclear plants and non-native EMF. All this stuff has contributed to a natural response. It's a cause and effect, just like karma, that's all that means, to a very unnatural way of living.
Yeah.
So given the right conditions, the body will repair and will heal.